We actually have our real guest today, who is a feller named Jason Collett. Welcome, Jason.
Yeah, thank you.
And Jason is a man of many, many hats, and we're going to hear about most of them, maybe half of them today if we have time. But one of them is actually where we are, Rock Hill Brewery, owner, brewmaster, man, conceptualizer, everything. So we're going to start with talking some about the brewery here. Some big things just happened with some awards and whatnot. We're going to talk about the brewery, but then we're going to get into learning more about Jason and his other stuff. So Jason, why don't you kind of chime in, tell us a little bit about yourself and the brewery.
All right, so let's see. I've been brewing or around craft brew for, 20 some odd years. I was actually an undergrad. I started at a tiny brewery called Bell's in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which lots and lots of people know now because it's the 7th largest brewery in the country. But back then, nobody even knew what craft beer was. But it was a great experiment moving out of Larry's garage, into a little side industrial complex, and now it's just grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. So over the years, I've had a lot of opportunities to work with breweries. Did some consulting work with Miller, did some consulting work with Coors.
I've never heard of them. Are they local?
Yeah, they're teeny tiny. They're just like backwoods breweries,
Okay.
or maybe not. I wasn't on the beer side then. I was doing more organizational psychology and continuous improvement type work. But then that brought me to Charlotte eventually. But yeah, this opportunity came along with Brendan. We looked at Rock Hill.
Hey, Brendan, let me interrupt. Brendan started owns McHale's, which is a cornerstone in downtown Rock Hill, and there was one over in TK for a while. And he's just really been, while Rock Hill kind of floundered and tried to get some legs under its downtown, Brendan was an absolute critical player in keeping downtown Rock Hill going. Just really been a great asset.
That's right.
The first cool thing in downtown Rock Hill, and for years. It was like, it wasn't even like stuff was hot on the heels of McHale's, It was all there was for a long time.
Yeah, I give Brendan a huge amount of credit for being not only a visionary and putting something together that is cool and that people can enjoy, but man, he has stuck it through over the years with kind of the ebbs and the flows and the economy transitions. And, I give a lot of credit. Rock Hill is what it is today because of everything that he's done. And, when we got together, about a year and a half ago now, we just kind of had the same vision, right? It's like Rock Hill, up and growing place, really cool things happening. We could create a space where the community could meet and talk, and we could have the mayor in once a month and do pint night with the mayor. We could do this, we could do that. So absolutely beer's important, but I'd say almost secondary to the overall vision of creating a space, right? That we can have events, and we can have speakers, and we can have private parties, and we can do really cool things. And then of course we want to have good beer too.
And I say a beautiful space, and the type of beautiful I'm talking about is industrial brick, picnic tables made out of old reclaimed wood.
Actually, these are imported from Germany and were original Oktoberfest tables. So if you look on the bottom, there's an Oktoberfest stamp, and then we just added our logo to the top.
So, but it's that type of atmosphere, concrete floors, just kind of, admiring the past and how the past has an imprint on things, and how things like that in a space make for a place full of stories and richness.
Absolutely, and that's the intent, and that's even why we have the brewery and the fermentation tanks and the bright tanks, and we pour right out of the tank. We don't pour out of kegs, we don't do bottles, we don't do cans or anything like that. It's the freshest beer you've ever had, right? Poured right out of the tanks, and all that stainless steel is right here in the room, because it's a part of the story that unfolds every day.
So you make it, so there's this area over to our left, it's got like the larger tanks. It's super, looks like like somebody did an Ant-Man shrinking of an industrial kind of complex. And that's where you make one beer at a time or 2 beers at a time, or?
Yeah, so the manufacturing process is a batch process. So that means we're doing one kind of beer at a time. In our case, it's about 200 gallons or so that we're producing initially. and then through the various processes and fermentation and dry hopping, if that's indeed what we do, et cetera, we end up with about 150 gallons that we're serving. And that takes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That takes it takes about 6 hours to brew the beer, but it takes Mother Nature about 6-8 weeks to actually make the beer.
Have you tried to see if you can hire a different mother? Is she not doing a good job? Maybe she's not being paid enough. I don't really know. Are there incentives?
I heard there was a union gathering that was thinking about maybe kind of holding off some of this weather that we got going on, and there's some other issues.
So it gets brewed, and then it goes into the holding tanks, which look like the brew tanks. They're super cool. They're industrial and silver and chrome and all that. And they got your logo on them. And
Flames shooting out.
And get guys with guitars on top of
flames, not real flames.
Yeah. The place is literally on fire, guys. We have to go.
Into this at the fire department,
That's not good. We should leave now.
Fake flames.
Yeah. And the place is fully sprinkled and insured, and but
It is.
But so, and they're serving the beer right out of those tanks. And how many beers do you have over there?
So 5 that are in the big bright tanks, but then we have room for 4 up front. So we also carry, ciders and wine and sours and et cetera. And then we also have a barrel aging program. So on special days like St. Patrick's Day coming up, we'll release 2 of our barrel aged beers. And we kind of have a variety.
You had them set aside for a while. Is that what you mean?
For coming on a year.
Okay.
So yeah, they've been sitting there getting yummy.
Yeah. Are they in barrels that have a past, or how's that?
They are. We have we work with or buy our stuff from a distillery out of Texas. They specialize in mainly bourbon, but bourbon out of Texas, depending on who you're talking to. So whiskey, but they also do some rum and they do some different things. So depending on the profile of our beer, I might choose to use a rum barrel because that might bring out different flavors than say like a whiskey barrel would.
So, I mean, man, I'm sure, I know you did a lot of brewing on small scales, like in your house and stuff, and you actually, might have been making a lot for this or that or whatever. But as you got into brewing larger amounts, I mean, isn't there a huge risk when you can, when you got one beer going through and it's going to take Mother Nature a while, and then on the end, you got to be confident it's going to be good or you're set back a while, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think you might have been walking by some of those days when we were initially opening, and I didn't have a lot of hair before. Now I have no hair because I pull it all out. I mean, it's a little nerve-wracking, right? Because the bigger you get, the more expense you have into that batch. If it doesn't go well, then obviously, I've only had one beer so far, knock on wood, that I made, and it didn't meet our standards, and with a lot of angst and a lot of frustration, I dumped it, and so that was frustrating. But I did get some compliments from other brewers and people that have been around and so on and so forth. A lot of times people will just try to push it out, get anything for it, call it something weird, call it bad batch number 1, and see if you can sell it, whatever.
Old pennies and shoes.
Old pennies and shoes. I like.
Dude, that would have sold. And then put a premium price on it, like $20 a glass.
Hold on, I got to write that one down because next time this happens. If you happen to come in the brewery and you see a pennies and shoes.
Bible leather.
Yeah, but I mean that's part of business, right? You gotta do the right thing.
Yeah, so. You gotta take your hits when you need to take your hits. Yeah. Well, so you guys, speaking of making good beer and bad beer, you guys just won a bunch of awards for making excellent beer. So tell us about that.
Yeah, shocking. I was literally floored. The whole reason for entering the beer was literally just to throw our name in the hat, start to get some level of recognition. We had no inclination. We had no thought that we would actually win anything, because we were going up, across the state to all the big breweries, and some of them out of state. But there are a lot of big names, a lot of excellent entries, and we ended up winning 5 awards, which floored me. In fact, when I first read it, I went through the list. I saw the first one, and I just started doing my happy dance and running around the house and telling my wife. And then my head brewer, Jared Jones, who is fantastic, texted me later. He's like, "Yeah, we won 5," and I didn't even. I didn't even bother reading the rest of the list because I saw one and I was, beside myself. So anyway.
So what did you win? So how does this work?
So there are multiple different levels. So there are about 55, 58 categories of beer.
Right.
And that could be something like a Belgian Strong, it could be something like an IPA, it could be something like a stout, or it could be like a flavored beer or a fruit beer. So all these different categories. I don't remember how many breweries across the state entered, but there was, a bunch. And then you could enter multiple categories. So we did that, and what we came away with, we got a silver medal for our IPA, which is unbelievable. That is by far like the most heavily entered, most competitive area. So that we got a silver was amazing.
I think for a lot of people, they don't know the difference between craft beer and IPAs. I've heard a lot of sort of people make comments that
like they think that's the same one and the same.
Right, yeah, because it's such a popular beer with like craft breweries and stuff.
Yeah, so that IPA category, it tends to be more bitter, it tends to be very nosy. You can smell it like a floral from a long ways away. Let's see, we got Bad Mama Jamma Brown. Took a silver, which was, it's a brown ale. It's a little bit maltier, a little bit sweeter, not nearly as bitter. And let's see, what else did we do? We had our Knowledge Perk coffee stout. So our friends down the road, Knowledge Perk Coffee, and Ryan Sanderson and Jonathan Taylor.
Which I'm drinking right now and is awesome.
Yeah. We collaborated, and so we got some of their beans and added that to our stout, and that took an award as well. What am I missing? Oh, our specialty that came out over the holidays was a Tipsy Christmas, which it was a light ale, but it had juniper berries and spruce tips in it. So it kind of, it was fun. When you first taste it, you almost feel like you're eating a Christmas tree, but that second sip, it really kind of like evens out and just really crisp and refreshing and fun. And the last one was a bourbon barrel aged Imperial Irish Honey Red.
Well, Jason, it's been a wonderful pleasure to hear about Rock Hill Brewery and its success. Congratulations on all the awards. I think it's fantastic. What should everyone out there know about Rock Hill Brewery in a sentence?
In a sentence, we make really good beer-flavored beer. So we're not out there creating all these wild concoctions. We just make really good traditional German, Belgian, American, good standard beer.
When you were describing all the beers that won awards, it was a commercial on me that was working really well because I wanted all of them.
Yeah, I mean,
In the same glass.
Yeah, exactly. Suicide.
Mix them all up.
He does have a fountain drink machine that you can just go buy suicide in. But so that's excellent. It's also a place. It's not just the beers, it's the place.
Absolutely. Strong focus on, the reason we created this, even how we positioned our monitors and TVs, is so we can have events that people can come in, and if they have a presentation or something, you know how you go to an event and they have the screen in the far side of the room and the back side is just talking and nobody can see, nobody can hear? Well, our monitors are all set up so you can do the presentation and everybody can see no matter where they're at, and everybody can hear. So we love doing events, and we're actually starting team building. So you can come in as
your past, of course,
as a charity. We'll do it as a fundraiser. As a private company or organization, we do it as a money raiser that you can give to a company, or to a charity. But you do the brewing. So you design the beer.
That's awesome.
You send in a team and you push the buttons. You control the recipe. We make sure you don't melt your face off or, get acid all over you or anything nasty like that. But you make the beer, you design the recipe, you come up with a marketing plan. And then after we brew the beer, 6-8 weeks later, we do a release party, and you get to invite all your friends and share their beer.
Wow.
And then raise money, for whatever group you want to give that to, and have all the marketing along with it, maybe a logo, and sell T-shirts and so on and so forth. So it can really turn into a great team building for, a corporate type of setting, and it can turn into a great fundraiser for a charity.
That is very cool. But it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Your Super Bowl commercial.